original.
Hello and welcome to Web Crawlers, the podcast where we do a deep dive into some of our favorite mysteries. Each week we will introduce our topic, lay out our research and findings, reveal some conspiracy theories, and conclude with our own hypothesis. I'm Allie Siegel.
I'm Melissa Stettin.
And I, producer Maria.
Melissa, who are our patrons for today?
We have A.D. Brandt, Heather, and Kate.
Welcome to the team, folks. So excited to have you here. Melissa,
Yes.
I've never heard of this, so I'm excited. What is our episode about today?
Well, you have heard of this because
Fascinating.
back in September, Amber Leah from Oregon called and suggested that we do an episode about this because her family,
yes, okay.
I believe, still lives in there. I'll play a little bit of her voicemail.
Hi, this is Amber Leah from Oregon again. My family and I were talking, and we would love for you guys to do an episode on the Keddie Cabin murders. Mostly because, my family has really close ties to Keddie itself. I have some distant family that owns Keddie still to this day. And, it would just be a really cool show to cover.
So yeah, and then she was calling every week with little details about the murder. She's like, I'm going to call until you guys do an episode.
Oh my God,
on it.
yes. Now I remember this.
So I was like, oh yeah, let's do an episode on it. And it's crazy. It's a crazy story.
Oh my God.
So that's what we're talking about today, baby.
Cannot wait.
Cool.
So between April 11th and April 12th, 1981, Glenna Sue Sharp and 3 others were brutally killed in the resort town of Keddie, California. And to this day, the murders remain unsolved. Or
Holy shit.
do they?
Oh.
Let's get into it. Okay. So on the morning of April 12th, 1981, Sheila Sharp returned to her home at cabin 28 in the Keddie Resorts in California from the next door neighbor's house. And Keddie it's 20 miles north of Lake Tahoe in NorCal. Very nice area up there. So Sheila, she's 14. And then what she discovered inside the house is one of the most grisly murder scenes in American crime history.
Oh, Jesus.
And it became known as the gruesome Keddie murders. So inside this cabin were the bodies of her mom, Sue Sharp, her teenage brother, John, and his high school friend, Dana Wingate. The 3 of them were tied by medical and electrical tape, and they had been stabbed, strangled, and bludgeoned. And Sheila's sister, 12-year-old Tina Sharp, was missing.
Oh, no.
Weirdly enough, in a bedroom, it was a 2-bedroom cabin, and in one of the bedrooms, there were the 2 youngest Sharp boys, Ricky and Greg, and they had a friend over, their neighbor, 12-year-old Justin. They were sleeping. They were unharmed. They had slept through this entire thing.
That's crazy.
It happened feet from their beds.
How is that possible?
I don't know.
Maybe they were knocked out? They were chloroformed or something?
Who knows? But they were totally unharmed. When inside this house was just this bloody murder scene. So the Sharp family, they had just moved into this cabin, number 28, the year before. Sue had divorced her husband because he was abusive, brought her children from Connecticut to Keddie, and there were 6 of them. So the mom, Sue, 36, she had a 15-year-old son, John. She had a 14-year-old daughter, Sheila, 12-year-old daughter, Tina, 10-year-old Rick, 5-year-old Greg. So she had 5 kids, single mom. And they were super friendly with their neighbors at this Keddie resort. So the night before the murders, Sheila, who's 14, she stayed over at a friend's house down the street. And then John and his 17-year-old friend Dana had hitchhiked to a nearby town of Quincy for a party and then came back that night. Remember hitchhiking back in the 80s?
It's so crazy. People just do that so freely.
Yeah, these were like teenagers too. Tina, the 12-year-old, had briefly joined her sister at the neighbors before returning home to her mother, her 2 younger brothers, and one of the neighbor boys, Justin Smart. So Sheila, 14-year-old, she got home the next morning. She saw her mother, brother, and his friend murdered on the living room floor. She ran out of the house back to the neighbor's house, and her friend's dad went through the house, went back into the house to see what was going on. And that's when he found the 3 unharmed boys. And so he took them out through the bedroom window so they didn't have to go through the house to see the horrific bloody scene.
Yeah.
So the murders were insanely violent, and the investigators were called about an hour after Sheila discovered her whole family. Deputy Hank Clement was the first to arrive on the scene, and he reported blood everywhere on the walls, the bottoms of the victim's shoes, Sue's bare feet, the bedding in Tina's room, the furniture, the ceilings, the doors, and on the back steps. There was just blood everywhere. So they assumed that this amount of blood suggested that the victims had been moved and rearranged from the positions in which they were murdered.
Fucking weird.
They must have just been dragged around the house. So John, who's 15, he was closest to the front door. He was face up. His hands were covered in blood and tied with medical tape. His throat had been slit. His friend Dana was on the floor beside him on his stomach, and his head was badly damaged, it was bashed in with a blunt object. And he had been strangled.
Oh my God.
And his ankles were tied with electrical wire, which was also tied around John's ankles. So these 2 boys were tied together. And Sheila's mom had been covered with a blanket, and on her side, she was naked from the waist down. She was gagged with a bandana, and her own underwear was tied around her and with medical tape. And she had the imprint of the butt of an .880 pellet gun on the side of her head. So assuming that someone hit her with the bottom of a gun. And her throat was also cut. Horrific. Insane.
Oh my God.
So all the victims had suffered blunt force trauma by hammers, and they also had stab wounds. There was a bent steak knife on the floor. There was a butcher knife, a claw hammer, and it was just everything, just shit laying around everywhere.
It's like the Purge in there.
This is crazy.
But it would take the police hours to realize that the 4th victim, Tina, the 12-year-old, was missing. So after it was discovered that Tina was missing, the FBI arrived on the scene. And the sheriff at the time of the murders, Doug Thomas, his deputy, Lieutenant Don Stoy, were not able to figure out the motive. It just appeared to be this random killing. Murderer must broken in and killed them. They couldn't figure out who did it or why. Also, there was no forced entry in the home. So the detectives did find an unidentified fingerprint from a handrail on the back stairs. And the cabin's telephone had been left off the hook. All the lights had been shut off, and all the drapes were closed. But what's more confusing is that these 3 youngest boys were not only untouched, but they were just completely unaware of anything happening.
That's so crazy.
Even though a woman and her boyfriend in the cabin next door awoke around 1:30 a.m. to what they described were muffled screams.
I wake up when the freezer makes more ice and drops it down. How
Me
do you
too.
not wake up when there's a brutal murder next to you?
I don't know.
That's why
That
I'm like,
makes
you were
no
drugged
sense.
or something. You were conked out or you did it. That's insane.
Yeah, it's really crazy. So these neighbors who heard the screams, they couldn't figure out where they were coming from, so they went back to bed. If you hear screams at 1:30
Just
in the
call the
morning,
cops. Just call the cops. That's all you got to do.
Just call the
Yeah.
cops. That
Call
happened
the chief of police.
a few months ago. We woke up and heard screaming at 2 a.m. And I was like, well, we got to go see what it is. So like we just looked out the window and it just ended up being like, some crazy person in the middle of the street screaming. So we were like,
I'm not crazy, Melissa.
Yeah, it was Allie in the middle of the street. We're like, it's just Allie. She's just
Sally's at it again.
She's
doing her
pushing
night
her shopping
screams.
cart, screaming. But like, you can't ignore screams at 2 a.m. Like, what are you doing?
No, you
Especially
can't do
in
that.
this like small little cabin village
Yeah.
where the neighbors.
You can't avoid screams in the woods.
Can't avoid screams in the woods. So, however, though the 3 boys initially claimed to have slept through it, Ricky and Greg's friend Justin Smart did later say that he saw the mom, Sue, with 2 men in the house that night. One reportedly had a mustache and long hair. The other was clean shaven with short hair, but they both had glasses. And one of the men had a hammer. So he said that John and Dana, the 2 older boys who were murdered, entered the home and argued with the men, and they all got into a fight. And then Tina, the 12-year-old who's missing, was allegedly taken out the cabin's back door by one of the men. This is what this kid said later, after he was like, oh, I didn't hear anything.
Weird.
Yeah. And allegedly, a lot of potential evidence was collected at the scene, but because this was 81, like pre-DNA testing, they couldn't get any info from it. So they collected all this evidence, but they couldn't do anything with it. So then the sheriff called the Sacramento Department of Justice, which then sent in 2 special agents from their organized crime unit.
Ooh.
Not the homicide unit, which people thought was very peculiar. Like you're sending in a
like
crime?
mafia stuff, like
Oh.
organized crime.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, like
Uh-oh.
Don Corleone.
Well,
Or Bugsy
you might
Siegel.
be onto something.
Okay.
So yeah, the people were like, huh, why, like it's a homicide, it's a murder. Why is it just like a crime unit? Immediately, the 2 lead suspects were Justin Smart's father, the kid that was in the house and who was alive, and he was actually the neighbors of the Sharps. His name was Martin Smart, and he had a friend in town, his friend John Bo Budabay, who was an ex-convict. He was known to have connections to organized crime in the area.
Uh-oh, this is some Tony Soprano shit.
Uh-huh.
Give me a meatball.
Yeah.
Allie.
Gabagool.
Fade to black. Give me a meatball. Fade to black.
God.
Is that your impression of The Sopranos?
Yeah, that's the finale of The Sopranos. Give me some meatballs. Boo, boo, boo. Fade to black.
It was actually cut to black.
Cut to black. Well, I've never
Was it
seen
a cut or was it a fade? Yeah, it was a cut.
It was a cut.
Hard cut. Yeah,
it was a cut. It was a hard cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the ending. I thought it made sense,
I've never seen a single episode of The Sopranos, but
Oh,
I got the
gotta.
gist. I got the gist. I'm Tony.
But it's so good. It's about Tony who's like in therapy.
Yeah, I'm Tony.
Yeah, you love therapy, Allie.
Yeah, give me a meatball sub. I'm Tony. I'm in the mob.
Yeah, he does say that at some point. Okay, so these 2 guys, Martin Smart and Bo, they had been seen in suits and ties behaving oddly in the bar the night before the murders. Like, what do you do wearing a suit and tie into a bar in the middle of the woods?
Yeah, that's no good.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Suspect. So Martin Smart later told the police that he had a hammer that matched the one discovered, and also that his hammer had gone missing shortly before the murders. He was like, oh yeah, that looks like my hammer. It went missing. Like, why would you say that?
Yeah, interesting.
Later that year, a knife was recovered from a trash can outside the Keddie General Store, and the police think this item is linked to the crimes as well. But then it would be 3 years after these murders until they found Tina, the 12-year-old. So, a man discovered a human skull in Butte County, about 30 miles from Keddie, and then near the remains, the detectives also found a child's blanket, a blue nylon jacket, a pair of jeans with a missing back pocket, and an empty surgical tape dispenser.
Ooh.
So that ended up being the remains of Tina Sharp.
Oh.
But before they figured out that this was Tina Sharp, because they just assumed like, oh, this is unrelated, like this is just like a body. The Butte County Sheriff's Department received an anonymous call that said, I was wondering if you thought the murder up in Keddie a couple years ago, where a 12-year-old girl was never found, is related to this. Like someone called them with a tip when they heard they found the body. They're like, oh yeah, that could
weird.
be related. So that's suspicious that someone was like, oh yeah, it's probably her.
Yeah.
But then Sheriff Thomas resigned from the investigation 3 months in, and he took a job at the Sacramento Department of Justice. His handling of the case, like looking back, is like disastrous and corrupt.
What else is new?
What else is new? Sheila Sharp, in an interview in 2016, she said, I was told the suspects were to get out of town. So to me, that means it was covered up. Like she heard that this detective told the suspects, you better get out of town for a while.
What? Yeah, you can't say that.
Well, you can. And you did.
Well, yeah,
Thomas
you
did.
can. I guess you could say whatever you want. Good point.
And then their home, the cabin, was demolished in 2004.
Now, let's take a quick break for announcements. Webcrawlers has a Patreon to get access to rewards, bonus episodes, video episodes, ad-free episodes a day early. Please go to patreon.com/webcrawlers. You can donate as little as $2 a month to become one of our bimbo patrons. Also, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Also, please shop at our web store, webcrawlerspod.com or hothorse.horse if you're nasty.
If you're nasty.
Nay!
Oh, no.
Also, Erios has a hotline. Insert jingle here.
626-604-6262.
We are pretty much caught up now, so please call, and don't forget the web crawlers
There's
contest.
no web crawlers challenge.
The web crawlers
It's not
contest
real.
challenge, where
No.
whoever leaves the longest voicemail, Maria is going to give them $30 million.
No.
and you get to live with Maria for a year.
Yeah.
So make sure that you leave as long a
for you.
voicemail
Careful what
as
you wish for.
Yeah. Don't tempt me with a good time. Now, back to our program.
Okay, so here's all this evidence. The tape of this anonymous tip regarding Tina was found sealed in case files, untouched by the sheriff's department until 2013 when the case was reopened with new investigators, Sheriff Greg Hagwood and Special Investigator Mike Gamberg.
Ooh, they're good.
Yeah, Hagwood
good.
and Gamberg.
Yeah, they're good.
You've heard of them?
Yeah, Rizzoli and Isles.
Yes. So in 2016, Gamberg found a hammer, believed she one of the murder weapons, in a dried up pond in Keddie. So as soon as these new investigators took over, they're like, there's something's up with this. So we gotta look into this. Also, it came to light that Marilyn Smart, who's Martin Smart's wife and the mother of Justin, the kid who was found at the house who was alive, had left her husband on the day of the murder.
Huh.
So afterward, she gave the detectives a handwritten letter sent to her and signed by her husband. It read, I've paid the price of your love, and now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we are through. Great. What else do you want? Like, that's a confession, right? Like, why would you write that and send it to your wife if you didn't just murder 4 people?
Yeah, what?
So the letter was not treated as a confession, nor was it followed up on at the time.
How? Why? Incompetence?
Even though Marilyn admitted in a 2008 documentary that she thought her husband and his friend Bo were responsible, Sheriff Doug Thomas contradicted this and said that Martin had successfully passed a polygraph test, which, like, that doesn't mean anything. Polygraph tests were garbage. And it was later confirmed that Martin Smart was friends with this sheriff.
Of course he was. He's a dirty cop. You can smell it from a mile away.
He's a dirty cop.
He's a dirty cop.
So then in 2016, investigator Gamberg, the Rizzoli of
Of the two.
met with a counselor at the Reno Veterans Administration. So this counselor told him that in May 1981, 1 month after the murder, Martin Smart had confessed to killing Sue and Tina Sharp. He said, "I killed the woman and her daughter, but I didn't have anything to do with the boys." And when the Department of Justice was alerted to this confession in 1981, they dismissed it as hearsay.
What?
So they were told about this confession.
Why didn't they look into it at least?
Because they were friends. The lead investigator was corrupt. So some theories are, the most popular one involves a love triangle between Martin, his wife Marilyn, and Sue.
Uh-oh.
So it's believed that Martin and Sue were having an affair and that Sue was supposedly trying to convince Marilyn to leave her husband, who she said was abusive to her. So then when Martin figured this out, he called up his ex-con friend, Beau. Beau's also a known mob enforcer who had lived with the Smarts just for 10 days before the murders. Like, he just got into town a week and a half before the murders. And some say that Martin had him come to take Sue out, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I know what you mean. I've seen The Sopranos.
Yes, you've seen. So this would also make sense for Marilyn leaving her husband the day of the murder discovery. And it would also explain why Justin Smart, the boy, and the other boys in the room were not killed.
Yeah.
Because why were they unharmed? If there's some crazy murderer coming into this house, why would they leave these 3 boys unharmed? And also, it makes sense, that handwritten note that Marilyn got. Like, it makes so much sense. So then the investigators who picked up the case when it reopened in 2013, they tied these murders to an even larger plot. To Gamberg, he said that the Department of Justice, why can't I say justice? Department of Justice and Sheriff Thomas, his department covered it up. He alleges that Beau and Martin were in this larger drug smuggling scheme that involved the federal government.
Oh, shit.
And that Beau could have been an FBI informant.
Interesting.
So Beau was potentially working with the FBI. And that Martin was this known drug dealer. And Beau was connected to the Chicago crime syndicates with financial interests in drug distribution. So he's part of the Chicago mob.
Oh, shit.
And this Sheriff Thomas was getting kickbacks.
Oh, fuck.
So that would explain why the Sacramento Department of Justice sent 2 allegedly corrupt organized crime special agents instead of agents from the homicide department.
Yes, that would, yes.
Mm-hmm. And it also provides an explanation as to why the 2 lead suspects were seemingly given a free pass and told to leave town by Sheriff Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane. You're supposed to say the opposite to suspects.
Right.
You're supposed to say, don't leave town.
Give me your passports. Don't leave town.
Don't leave town right now.
So then that all explains why the case was handled so sloppily, remains unsolved, and just like not a priority to the Sacramento Department of Justice. Although both Martin Smart and his ex-convict friend Beau are now dead, there has been new DNA evidence that have pointed to other suspects who may have had a hand in these murders and who are still alive. So the case is kind of still open. I mean, it seems obvious that it's those 2 guys.
Yeah.
And then another theory is that the suspects may have targeted Tina, the girl who was kidnapped. So the police investigated a bunch of other people, including Sue Sharp's ex-husband and father of the 5 Sharp children. Sheila stated that her father was abusive towards Sue and all the children. She claims that he molested her and Tina before Sue packed up and left him.
Oh, shit.
And Sheila said that Tina was known as their father's favorite.
Ugh.
So because Tina was abducted rather than found dead at the scene, the police thought she might be the target of the attack.
Oh.
But it turned out to be a dead end because James Sharp, the ex-husband, he had an airtight alibi. He was in like Connecticut at the time. So he was not a suspect. And then the police also investigated Tina's teacher at Quincy Elementary. This is weird. He had like a weird fixation with Tina and had her photo on his desk at work and in his house.
You can't do that.
Yeah, it's weird. The teacher did have an alibi, but the police were definitely suspicious of him because he was later arrested for child abuse in a different state. So, like, he was a creepy-ass teacher. They don't think he did this murder, but, like, gross.
Yeah, let me tell you, as a former elementary school teacher, it is not
pictures of your students.
Imagine if I had pictures of my student, of one male student on my desk and around my house. I would, my friends would be like, "Hey, Allie, this ain't right. Like, that's not. No. That should be illegal. Period. That's so fucking weird."
Yeah, it's so strange. So that's like a weird thing that like might not lead anywhere, but it's just like such a weird.
Yeah, but still, that ain't right.
It's weird.
Also, poor Tina. They actually, the statistics are that if you've been sexually assaulted once, that you're more likely to be sexually assaulted a second time. Yeah, just because like predators can sniff you out.
Oh God.
Yeah, but that's scary. Oh God.
Yeah. And then the suspects might have been serial killers.
Oh.
So Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas, famous serial killers, happened to be traveling through Northern California around the time of the murders. And they were also investigated. The boxcar killer was living just a few miles away in Quincy and committed dozens of crimes in the area from 1979 to 1986. But he was ruled out as a suspect. You
know what I was thinking of when you said that? I've never heard of the boxcar killer. I was thinking of the Boxcar Children. That series of books. I was like, they killed people? That's crazy. Yeah. I thought it was like, but okay.
The Boxcar Killer. Yeah, like, so the case eventually went cold. They only took like a little bit of hard evidence from the scene of the crime because like DNA wasn't a thing. So like they weren't like looking into taking fingerprints or anything. And Detective Hagwood said, "It's my belief that there were more than 2 people who were involved in the crime, the disposal of the evidence, and the abduction of the little girl. We're convinced that there are a handful of people that fit those roles who are still alive."
It's crazy. I just Googled DNA testing wasn't invented until 1984. That's so recent.
It's so crazy. You'd think it's just been around forever, but
I know. I mean,
it's so wild.
I mean, I was born in 1986. I'm 35. So it's like only a few, 30. Yeah. So it's 37 years old. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts. So there's 2 movies based on this.
Oh.
And I watched them both. Whoa.
Really?
There's one called Cabin 28.
Oh, that's new, isn't it?
What year was it from?
2017.
Oh, no, 2017.
Oh.
It is truly one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Oh, no, really?
Well, the acting is so bad. I think it was filmed like overseas because like all the actors are British, but they're all trying to do American accents. And one guy sounds like Foghorn Leghorn. Like
that's incredible.
That's his American accent. And one woman has like a Southern, like a New Orleans accent. And it's just so bad.
But they're supposed to be in California?
Yes.
Because
yes.
I always say that bad horror is like porn adjacent. Like I think they use porn actors in very bad horror. It's not that I like recognize them from porn, but it has like the same vibe to it. Like very low budget, like bizarreness.
And then there's a movie called The Strangers. that came out in 2008
with Liv Tyler.
Oh, that's a
Tyler.
famous movie. Yeah.
That one's okay. That's a pretty good horror. That's a solid horror movie.
Yeah, that's great. Strangers is a great movie.
It's inspired by the Keddie murder, so it's not like really about it, but pretty good, solid horror movie.
They also made a sequel to that called The Strangers Prey at Night.
Yeah, I saw that.
Another great movie along those lines is Funny Games.
Oh,
If you've ever seen
God,
that.
yeah. And that's a remake of
yes.
another movie. Funny Games is so good. I mean, I don't love it. It's like horrific, but it's such a well-made movie. And Naomi Watts is out of control good.
Yes, and it's a remake of what is it, like a Danish or something?
It's the same director.
Yeah,
it's Michael Haneke.
Yeah, and he remade it shot for shot. He said that he would only redo it if he could do it like shot for shot. So it's the exact same.
I've never
movie.
seen it.
Oh, it's so good, Melissa. I think you'd really like it. It's like basically it's like a family goes to like this really nice home for like a vacation, and then just trouble follows
Love it.
them.
Love when families go to vacation homes and then horrible shit happens.
And Melissa, horrible things.
Horrible stuff happens. My doppelganger's in it, Michael Pitt.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're separated at birth twin.
Yeah, my twin brother, Michael Pitt.
How old is Michael Pitt?
However old Allie is.
Yeah, he's born March 9, 1986. Let's see.
Oh, he's born in 81.
Yeah,
April 10th,
my mom took a really long time giving birth to both of us. So we're twins, but it was just like a 5-year long birth.
Interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Well, what
Yeah,
a crazy story. If you guys have any other stories to tell us about cabin murders, horror movies you like, other
Cabin
things like
murders.
this, or if you have a theory about maybe who done it, Melissa, where can people reach us?
You can email us at webcrawlerspod@gmail.com.
You're gonna die. I just Googled Michael Pitt, and he does have a sister, and guess what her name is?
Is it Allie?
Yes, he has a sister named Allison Pitt.
Is it spelled like
Yes.
you? Oh my God. And does she look just like you?
I'm trying to find. I don't know.
Allison
There's no
Pitt.
pictures of her, it seems.
Oh, she's not.
I can't
famous?
tell.
Let's
I
see.
can't tell, like, because there's a lot of Allison Pitts. There's like no pictures of them together.
Yeah.
This is crazy. We gotta see what
I know.
Allison Pitt looks like. Allison Pitt's podcast credits and interviews? What if she's a podcaster? There's an Allison Pitt podcaster who is she has daily Star Trek news.
Oh, she's a Trekkie.
She's a Trekkie. How do we find out? Oh God.
Stacey
Okay, well, if you know
If you
what-
can find a picture of Michael Pitt's sister.
sister, that's actually the most important thing. If you
Yes.
know what Michael Pitt's sister Allison looks like, please, we really need you to get in ASAP, please. All right. I am Allison, not Michael Pitt's sister, Siegel.
I'm Melissa. Love a family being tortured at a cabin movie, Stetton.
Oh yeah.
And I'm producer Maria. Michael Pitt's a good actor, Blasucci.
He is a good actor. All right. Bye.
Bye.
An Erios original.
Powered by Acast.